Welcome to another episode of CrusaderCast. Today we are checking out the upcoming free-to-play MMO, Dungeons & Dragons Neverwinter. This game went from being barely on my radar to my most anticipated MMO of the year. I was that impressed in this first beta. And here's a bit of gameplay from a group instance you can queue for pretty early in the game. I think it's level 5. You can see the combat is not hotkey tab based, but it is action based like Terra. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more action-based MMOs because I'm getting pretty tired of the tab 1, tab 5 combat 90% of MMOs have since WoW. So let's look at the available races here. First up are humans, obviously, and as you can tell, this game has a Western fantasy look. It's not Eastern fantasy, it's definitely Tolkien fantasy. Those are dwarves, and that's what I think Korean MMOs are missing. I'm really looking forward to ArcheAge adding them. These are elves here, and halflings, which are hobbits, basically. And next is TEEF-ling or TEEF-ling, depending on your D&D stance, but I've always said TEEF-ling. Next is half-elves, which is pretty cool. And for those of you that have played Dungeons & Dragons before, the Drow are a playable race and will be in the next beta. So here are the classes. Trickster Rogue, basically a rogue. Devoted Cleric. They're healers, but they actually have quite a bit of combat ability. And a Guardian Fighter, that's what I chose, that's a tank. And you just saw me roll for my ability score, like roll dice for my ability score. So that's a pretty cool nod to Dungeons & Dragons. Here are some pre-made tieflings, and here you get to see some of the basic character creation options. Hopefully they will add a little bit more because it's a bit stale right now. And actually it's funny, as I was booting up the beta, I knew nothing about this game. I had no preconceived notions. I didn't know it was going to be action-based. I didn't know anything. I just went in, I created a character, and I actually thought it was going to be a really crummy MMO because I was really underwhelmed by the character creation. So I hope they flesh that out because for me personally, that's how I developed, that's my first idea of the game, you know? If I see that the character creation's kind of crummy or you don't have many options, I'm going in with low expectations when I start in the starting zone. So I really hope that they add more. But as far as this game goes, I mean, I couldn't have been more impressed. You know, I paid to get into the first beta, but I couldn't have been happier. I'm actually thinking about, and this is crazy because I'm kind of a cheapo, but I'm actually thinking about jumping in and spending the $200 for the full Founders Pack because I enjoyed this game so much. And for some reason here, as you see, I decided to make his tail bigger. The biggest tail I could possibly get on this guy. And here you get to pick your character's home city and the deity they worship. I'm sure this will be fleshed out in later betas, but it probably revolves around certain ability perks depending on the deity you choose. And it's pretty cool because if you're a role player, then your character has a really fleshed out background. All bosses in the game are previewed in this style with the short cutscene. I think it's really cool. It's a really cinematic flair they add to the game, and of course this is Dungeons & Dragons, so a lot of the time you're spending in this game you are in a dungeon, so it's nice to have a little bit of preview of where you're going to go. You face this guy literally in the first 5 minutes of the game, and I will say this, I've never played a beta MMO that was more well balanced than this. Everything from the leveling to the combat to the zones, you really feel like you're playing a third-person action game, but you're actually in an MMO world, which is just awesome. Here's a basic rundown of how the combat fighter class works. You have hotkeyed abilities like charge and disabling hits, but the majority of what you do revolves around blocking and attacking over your shield, while at the same time maintaining your shield bar. That's the little blue bar on the left beside my character. To do that, you have to attack enemies with a low damage shield hit, so it's all about balance. Your shield hits do almost no damage, but if you only attack with your sword, you will lose the ability to block and probably die because every hit that connects with you lowers your shield block gauge. Is it the most revolutionary combat system ever? No, but it was more enjoyable than the last 20 MMOs I played. Here I am in an instance with a cleric, basically a healer, but they have a lot of offensive abilities compared to other MMOs. I can't wait to get in some cleric time next beta weekend. So now that I've talked about the gameplay quite a bit, you're probably thinking, does this game look good? It's going to be free to play, right? Well, it's incredible looking. I'd say it's in between a stylized look and realism like Guild Wars 2, but it's a clear and consistent art style. Something else I noticed about Neverwinter was the sound design. I have never heard ambient and background sounds this good in an MMO. It's something that I never even noticed in games. I might enjoy the background music, but I would never comment to someone on the chatter between NPCs or background battle sounds as being awesome in a game. This gameplay is from the Cloak Tower, the first dungeon in the game. While this is the first official dungeon that you queue for, I have to comment on the quality of the quest before this. Nearly every major questline I played through level 20 sent you into a mini dungeon. Maybe this is just my personal preference as far as a fantasy game goes, but it makes more sense to clean out a dungeon under a city than run out into an open field and kill 20 mobs grouped together in threes, right? To say there was no grind is an understatement. I'll just say this now. I have never had a better experience in a starter zone in any other MMO ever, and I've played a lot of MMOs. So, the fact that I'm saying that it should be pretty meaningful. I mean, I've never, maybe I just have a nerd stiffy because I like Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know. But I really enjoyed this game, and I really want you guys to know this is one you need to pick up. Out of all the games I've covered, pick this one up. And here's some footage from the final boss in the Cloak Tower. And I must say, it was pretty hard. It wasn't a walk in the park at all. It was nicely balanced. It was challenging, but it wasn't ridiculous. I didn't feel like, sometimes even with Terra, some of those later dungeons were ridiculous for the Lancers. The fact that you had to time those blocks so perfectly. It was fun. I enjoyed Terra, but it was a little over the top sometimes. This is a little bit more of a game that you can play with your friends and it be challenging, but you don't get frustrated and mad at them when they mess up too bad. So, I'm sure some of you are thinking he just liked Dungeons & Dragons and traditional fantasy settings. Well, I haven't even talked about what makes this game mind-blowing. The Foundry system is a feature that allows anyone to make full quests or quest chains and dungeons. What you are seeing right now is a completely player-made quest chain. Everything from the enemies to the dialogue to the dungeon design and where the NPC offers you the quest in the world was designed and placed by a player. So that's really cool too. So when you think about you're in a zone and players have created instances in this zone, they can set NPCs to be in the world to say, hey, I got this problem, hey, you need to clear out this house, whatever, and it will take you on a player-made dungeon quest. I mean, that's really cool. That's a really unique thing. So as I've said before, Cryptic has done an amazing job with the questing and balance of this game. But the player-generated content is only limited by any one person's imagination. And I know there are thousands of dungeon masters itching to recreate their adventures with their buddies. So it's just incredible. I mean, it really is cool. The fact that this game is so well balanced as far as the content that the studio created, but also the fact that there is limitless player possibility in creating content. And oh yeah, Neverwinter has armor dice too, for all you Guild Wars 2 fans. So if you like this video, please subscribe and share it. Check out the link in the description to win awesome prizes. So until next time, adios.